Hey guys. Hey guys. Reed here. I'm going to wait a few minutes for a few people to come on in so I get started. And today we're going to talk about the Obamas and the Trumps. And this discussion is mainly about how these narcissistic networks distort reality. And these networks are so powerful that they can subject us to living in realities that we don't want. You know, you ever had the experience of not getting the job you wanted, or not getting the position you wanted? You know, you ever think about how your life is stagnated while other people, the people included in the club, they tend to just go on like a rocket. They jump steps without having any issues at all. And they seem to do it naturally. And why are you having all these troubles, all these problems? You know, after 20 years of working in your profession, why aren't you at the top? You know, why aren't you at the top when other people pass you by? Yeah. That's because the narcissistic networks around you taking all the resources for themselves, and they don't have anything left for you, and they're never going to give you anything. You better understand that. So this discussion is going to be on the Obamas versus the Trumps, and we're going to look at the first ladies. Right? Is it possible that the narcissistic network actually can it lower the quality of the women who represent us all? You know, it's interesting to look at this. So we're going to look at the Michelle Obama, and we're going to look at what's her name, whatever her name is. We'll look at her too, and I think we've been duped. I think if you look at what's happening, I think that we've settled a lot, and I think it's dangerous. You know, I think it's dangerous. But let me just go through here. Here I have pulled up the Wikipedia page for Michelle Obama. And Michelle, let's see here. Okay, Wikipedia. Michelle. Okay. Michelle LaVaughn Robinson Obama. 1964, an American attorney, author, first lady, and married to Barack. Raised on the South Side. And Obama is a graduate of Princeton University and Harvard Law School. In her early career, she worked at a law firm where she met her future husband. Okay. And then she worked as the Associate Dean of Students at the University of Chicago. Later, she served as Vice President for Community and External Affairs at the University of Chicago Medical Center. So in here, let's see here, preceded by Laura Bush. Yeah. Okay, 61 here. Education, Princeton with a BA and Harvard with a JD. Great. Okay, so if you look at our former first lady, I mean, she is just as accomplished as her husband, right? I mean, they are basically on the same level. You know, when we selected Barack, you know, he was honest with us about who he partnered with, and so I think those 8 years, you know, the country, and our culture and our civilization was in pretty good hands. You know. However, let's go ahead and look at our current First Lady, Melania Trump, right here. Okay. Hers get a little bit complicated. But let me just try to get through this together. 1970. She is a Slovenian and American former model, right? Married Trump. Okay. Served as the first lady. Okay. She is the first naturalized citizen to become a first lady. Okay. The second foreign born first lady. The second Roman Catholic after Janet Kidney. Okay, it's not important. She was born in Yugoslavia and she began working as a fashion model at the age of 16 while pursuing her education. All right, she changed her name. Okay, she traveled to Paris and Milan seeking work before meeting this dude, Zampoli, who hired her and sponsored her immigration to the United States in 1996. And so she was born in 1970. So 26. It's kind of old for a model coming over to New York at 26. What was she, like a middle-aged model or something like that? You know, it'd be tough for a 26-year-old to be hanging around with 16 and 17-year-olds in that modeling world. Um, okay. She worked as a model in Manhattan, where Zampoli introduced her to Donald in 98, and she began dating Donald shortly after. Oh, so look, he got her jobs, okay, more modeling jobs, and supported him during the presidential election. Okay. Now, it said here, when she initially came out, she said she graduated from college. But here in her bio here, they don't even have an educational section on the details, on her personal details. They don't even have education, but then they have it here. All right, let me see where it says here. As a child, as well as a teenager. Okay. After graduating at 19, she enrolled in this Faculty of Architecture and Civil Engineering at the University of Chicago to study design, leaving after a few months without finishing her degree. And so our first current lady has a high school equivalent of a high school diploma. Nothing wrong with that. Something wrong with that. She should have been honest, straightforward with it. I mean, the era of superiority, the aristocracy, that piece of it is sort of like it's a veneer. Okay. And also in her modeling, she also did nude modeling. They try to sanitize it by saying nude modeling, but basically this is still sex work. I mean, this is not modeling, this is sex work. Right. Um, and so I just want to briefly go through here. I don't want to go through too much, but look, it's a GQ page, cheesy. Cheesy. Let me get off of that because I don't want to go through any violations or anything like that. But I read an article in Russia that they actually the government's posting all of her nudes around, and these are this is pornography, and not nudes. This is pornography, and this is sex work, right? And that's what we have now as our first lady, right? Take it or leave it. That's what we have here. But if you see the degradation and the quality of the people who represent us, we went from a woman who represented access. I mean, progressive access to all parts of our society. I mean, also the right to be treated as your male counterpart, and the right to operate on the same level. It's unfortunate that Melania had to um, um, take that route be exposed to that route in order to get to the White House. You know, I think that this decline in the people who represent us or our values is a representation of the impact that that network is having. This network is so powerful that the behaviors of the members in this network don't have to be taken into consideration anymore. There's no standards. Um, there's no standards for it. There's so much power in these networks. They have the ability to simply enforce things upon us, and so that's a problem for us in this huge collective of people in this society. Because if they are successful at creating a narrative that we know are all fake and expanding it over all of our realities, and then forcing us to live under though that forcing us to live in that rabbit hole, um, it's not going to end up good for any of us. You have to always live in your reality, not the reality that they're going to set for you. I'm going to believe exactly what I saw, not what they're telling me I should believe. And now this network, you see how it has such an influential impact that they can simply do these things. Now, we recently saw the news report with Diddy. And so most recently, Diddy attorney got on TMZ Live and basically and devoted his committed his devotion to him in favor of a pardon. And so let's look at this. Let's look at TMZ report here. Now, this Trump Epstein network that's so powerful enough to suppress Congress votes, to suppress everything and force everyone to obey, is now Diddy's network is now reaching out to this network for support, right? And so you see one, I think is a hierarchy. I think this is the highest one. And I think Diddy's is maybe like 17 stories behind there. So I think that Diddy's network of sociopaths, narcissistic psychopath, and everything he's been doing and recording, I'm sure Trump doesn't know the secrets he has, right? And then Trump may be able to use all of these things to his advantage. Okay, so he's asking for a pardon. But it's interesting that this network is doing this in front of everyone. These networks are merging to be more effective against us. But when they describe what they're doing, they describe it from the other side. They describe it from the aspect of victimhood. And so here, did he say, hey, I've been persecuted falsely just like you, Trump. And we should never, not Americans should ever have to put up with this again. We need to put stop to this false prosecution of us. This is going too far. I will lend my support to you for whatever you need to stop this prosecution of these victims. So they describe it from Trump. So Diddy's narrative describes it from that perspective. Now, let's see if Diddy's network could frame something like this and expand it so that other commentators, news reporters are actually saying that perspective. We'll see how effective he is at that. But let me just look at this and look at what his attorney says and how his attorney comes out. Very interesting.
Welcome to TMZ Live and welcome back.
Thank you very much. Glad that we decided to wear the same.
This is ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Diddy will pledge allegiance to Donald Trump if he's pardoned. And we got this almost from the horse's mouth.
It's as close to the horse's mouth as you can get, considering Diddy is still in MDC Brooklyn right now. But his attorney, one of his attorneys, Mark Garagos, spoke about the possibility of a pardon from Donald Trump.
So we're going to show you this. This was on our Two Angry Men podcast. And I kind of lobbed this at him thinking he'd deflect it and just said, will Diddy pledge allegiance to Donald Trump if he's pardoned? And I thought Mark was going to say, well, we'll see. It's too early. Okay.
Yeah.
It is.
Let me just make a note here. I think the purpose of this interview was for Mark Garagos to frame it that way and then to push it out there. Right now, in 2 hours, he got 15,000 people to listen to that new framework he set, and I wonder what percentage of those accept that as reality. So I think the purpose of him was to do this, because if you watch the interview, that's the only thing he actually said, right? It's the only thing he actually made. Even though he talked around a bunch of things, that was the only point he ever made.
Equivocal. This is unequivocal. Would Diddy pledge allegiance to Donald Trump in return for a pardon?
I think you want to know the truth. I think yes. There's something.
I think. Do you want to know the truth? I think yes. See?
That fraternity of people who have been accused and have gone through the process that gives you an affinity. And it would not surprise me to hear Sean say, I now get it. I understand it. And I was wrong then. And I don't know that I would say he's pledging loyalty, but I think.
See, let me go back to this. People who are being dishonest with you, they have to remember a lot of details. And so they have to make sure everything lines up right, because if it doesn't line up right, then you'll be able to easily pick out the fact that they're lying. And he doesn't want people to know that. To me, he seems to be lying. He doesn't want people to know that. So what happens? His language changes. He becomes a sports narrator. And he begins to talk as if he's narrating a sport, like you're not there, but you're listening, right? And that allows him to pull from his, at this point, long-term memory about the story of what happened. I mean, this dude memorized the whole story. And he stuttered in order to get the story started. He gets distracted, but he comes back to the main theme again. But let me just go through that a little bit. It seems like his purpose was to actually set the framework, and I think it happened very well.
Unequivocal. This is unequivocal. Would Diddy pledge allegiance to Donald Trump in return for a pardon?
I think.
You see the long pause? It was like, now pull up the script.
You want to know the truth? I think yes. There's something about that fraternity of people who have been accused.
The fraternity of people who have been accused. He puts everybody together in a list as if all the people who've been accused of these things actually agree with Diddy and actually agree with Trump and the things that they've done. I don't think that those people would lump together, and I don't think the people he's implying to would agree with what he's saying.
And have gone through the process that gives you an affinity.
And have gone through the process and gives you an affinity. He's trying to introduce you into a whole new reality, a whole new framework that you have to accept this condition, and then this condition have to be true, and then that condition have to be true, and then that condition have to be true. And at that point, after all of these conditions are true, then that's when you render the reality that they want. That's when they start to understand. But you've already eliminated your critical reasoning, because there's a 5-step process that you've assumed to be true, and none of them are true because he's making all of it up. Let's see.
It would not surprise me to hear Sean say, I now get it.
It would not surprise me to hear him say, I now get it. You mean you're his attorney? You haven't spoken to him about this? Of course you've spoken to him about this. You would know exactly how he feels about it.
Stand it, and I was wrong then, and I don't know that I would say he's pledging loyalty, but I think he would probably say, I now get what he went through.
Would I be jumping to conclusions to think that there wasn't a discussion about how Diddy would speak of the president in return for a pardon?
Well, I don't know that there's ever been that discussion. I can't go that far, but I would.
Really?
I would, but it would not.
For those of you listening, Mark just smiled. So, okay, the key words to me are, he was wrong then. Because remember, he didn't...
See, they switched his, but that was the only point he got out. Nothing else was actually any points. And the way he framed it, like let me see how he framed it here.
for Trump the last time around.
And he had very critical things to say.
Right. But he said he was wrong. It's like nobody really believes he's saying he was wrong then. But as long as he says it, it's.
And then, so I think you're probably seeing that network of Diddy's or Trump's in effect right now, because think of what we just saw. Okay, they just did an interview. Well, after the interview, the man has more questions after the interview before you came. The only thing you did is come over here and confuse everybody. So what was the purpose of doing the interview in the first place? The purpose of the interview was created to create that framework and then start to gaslight everybody, create all these distractions from what the issue really is. And that means that Trump have no idea the valuable trove of information Diddy and his network may or may not have collected on everybody involved at his house, because it seemed like he had an operation that seemed in structure seemed to resemble everybody else's operation. And so I think that this is the two networks merging together to sort of support each other. And these two networks will be a very significant, a very potent force against us, against robbing us of our opportunities and things, our righteousness, our things like that. And it has a whole impact on the country, because look at how we're making our decisions, look at what we're doing, and look at who represents us. So it's like 21 minutes now. So I think I'll go ahead and sort of end this now. Let me see if I can take a few questions. Okay. iHash, how you doing, buddy? Appreciate your comments, man, and appreciate your support. Can public opinion ever be truly independent in the age of narc-driven media? I think narcs fight hard for the things that they want, and they never stop. So I think they really outcompete people who are healthy. And then when they operate in groups behind the scenes, they have very unfair advantage. So I think that they're definitely inundated in the entire media. What signs should we watch to know a network is distorting the truth? I think it's, in your personal life, I think it has to do with obstacles, right? I think you should look at it differently. So, for example, if you're not doing well, I think you should look at the people around you. Okay, what are they doing to me that makes it such that I can't get through this problem? I don't know, what are they doing to? I flip it like that. And the answer is, what are they doing? They're doing the same thing they've always been doing to you, but you've been ignoring. And then who is doing this? You know who's doing that to you. It's the same person you've been fighting for all these years. She's just afraid to come in your face, and she's just afraid to do it behind your back. But you know who it is, right? So the signs is you're not doing well. You're not getting what you want. You're not getting what you need. You're not making any progress. There's nothing out here that's so complicated that no one doesn't understand it. And then that's the point of really good friends and groups are for. And that is to make sure that you get the information you need and help carry your burdens for you. That's why narcs are very successful. Remember, at what they do. Remember, they're cowards, so they can't do anything wrong. So every time they destroy someone's life, they did it because the network supported them 100%. Okay, and that sounds good. Okay, so my discussion on narcissism is a network. In this discussion, you see how powerful the networks are, and they can distort things. Just like the quality of the people who represent us significantly decrease, that's the same thing. Like when you're in your job and the people who pass you up, they are not able to do the same level work, same level of job, and everything suffer as a result of that, but they still keep them there. So they'll have a business, promote people who are not qualified. The business fails, but they keep the business there as long as they suppressing you, and you're the one with all the talent, and you're the one who are supposed to have been there. All right. So if there's any other questions, thank you so much, Dr. Reed. Talk to you guys later. Reed out.